Hey, we are in First Chronicles, sorry, 25 and 26 from the New International Version. Pretty straightforward chapters dealing with musicians and gatekeepers, a lot of names again. But notice how many people are involved in the worship and the leading in the temple. You know, this just isn't your typical praise band and your greeters. This is a whole host of people who are willing to serve God wholeheartedly. So let's jump into the text. David, together with the commanders of the army, set apart some of the sons of Asaph, Heman, and Jeduthun, for the ministry of prophesying, accompanied by harps, lyres, and cymbals. Here's the list of the men who performed this service. From the sons of Asaph, Zakur, Joseph, Nethaniah, and Azarallah. The sons of Asaph were under the supervision of Asaph, who prophesied under the king's supervision. As for Jeduthun, from his sons, Gedaliah, Zerah, Jeshai, Shimei, Hashabiah, and Methathai, 6 in all, under the supervision of their father Jeduthun, who prophesied using the harp and thanking and praising the Lord. As for Heman, from his sons, Bechiah, Mattaniah, Uzziel, Shubal, and Jeremoth, Hanani, Eliathah, Gedalti, and Romamti-Ezer, Joshbekashah, Malothai, Hothar, and Mahazioth. All these were sons of Heman, the king's seer. They were given him through the promises of God to exalt him. God gave Heman 14 sons and 3 daughters. All these men were under the supervision of their father for the music of the temple of the Lord, with cymbals, lyres, and harps for the ministry at the house of God. Asaph, Jeduthun, and Heman were under the supervision of the king, along with their relatives, all of them trained and skilled in music for the Lord. They numbered 288. Young and old alike, teacher as well as student, cast lots for their duties. The first lot was for Asaph, fell to Joseph, his sons and relatives, 12. The second to Gedaliah, from his relatives and sons, 12. The third to Zakur, his sons and relatives, 12. The fourth to Isri, his sons and relatives, 12. The fifth to Nethaniah, his sons and relatives, 12. The sixth to Bechiah, his sons and relatives, 12. The seventh to Jesarlah, his sons and relatives, 12. The eighth to Jeshai, his sons and relatives, 12. The ninth to Mattaniah, his sons and relatives, 12. The 10th to Shimei, his sons and relatives, 12. The 11th to Azriel, his sons and relatives, 12. The 12th to Hashabiah, his sons and relatives, 12. The 13th to Shubal, his sons and relatives, 12. The 14th to Matthiah, his sons and relatives. The 15th to Jeremoth, his sons and relatives. The 16th to Hananiah, his sons and relatives. The 17th to Joshbekashah, his sons and relatives. The 18th to Hanani, his sons and relatives. The 19th to Malothai, his sons and relatives. The 20th to Eliathah, his sons and relatives. The 21st to Hothar, his sons and relatives. The 22nd to Gedalti, his sons and relatives. The 23rd to Mahazioth, his sons and relatives. The 24th to Romamti-Ezer, his sons and relatives. The divisions of the gatekeepers. From the Korathites, Meshelemiah, son of Kor, one of the sons of Asaph. Meshelemiah had sons: Zechariah the firstborn, Jediel the second, Zebediah the third, Jathniel the fourth, Elam the fifth, Jehohanan the sixth, Eliahonai the seventh. Obed-Edom also had sons: Shimei the firstborn, Jehozabad the second, Joe the third, Sakar the fourth, Nathanael the fifth, Amiel the sixth, Issachar the seventh, and Peuleathai the eighth. For God had blessed Obed-Edom. Obed-Edom's son Shimei also had sons who were leaders in their father's family because they were very capable men. The sons of Shimei, Othni, Raphael, Obed, and Elizabad. His relatives Elihu and Semachiah were also able men. All these were descendants of Obed-Edom, and they and their sons and their relatives were able men with the strength to do the work. Descendants of Obed-Edom, 62 in all. Meshelemiah had sons and relatives who were able men, 18 in all. Hosa, the Merarite, had sons. Shimri, the first, although he was not the firstborn, his father had appointed him the first. Hilkiah the second, Tabaliah the third, and Zechariah the fourth. The sons and relatives of Hosa were 13 in all. These divisions of the gatekeepers, through their leaders, had duties for ministering to the temple of the Lord, just as their relatives had. Lots were cast for each gate, according to their families, young and old alike. The lot for the east gate fell to Shelemiah. Then lots were cast for his son Zechariah, that wise counselor. And the lot for the north gate fell to him. The lot for the south gate fell to Obed-Edom. And the lot of the storehouse fell to his sons. The lots for the west gate and the Sheliketh gate on the upper road fell to Shupam and Hosa. Guard was alongside of guard. There were 66 Levites a day on the east, 4 a day on the north, 4 a day on the south, and 2 at a time at the storehouse. As for the court to the west, there were 4 at the road and 2 at the court itself. These were the divisions of the gatekeepers, who were descendants of Korah and Merari. Their fellow Levites were in charge of the treasuries of the house of God and the treasuries for the dedicated things. The descendants of Ladan, who were Gershonites through Ladan, and who were heads of families belonging to Ladan the Gershonite, were Jehiliah. The sons of Jehili, Zetham, and his brother Joel. They were in charge of the treasuries of the temple of the Lord. From the Amramites, the Israelites, and the Hebronites, and the Uzzielites. Shubael, the descendant of Gershom, son of Moses, was the official in charge of the treasuries. His relatives, through Eleazar, Rehabiah, his son, Jeshiah, his son, Joram, his son, Zikri, his son, and Shilemith, his son. Shilemith and his relatives were in charge of all the treasuries for the things dedicated by King David by the heads of families who were the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds, and by the other army commanders. Some of the plunder taken in battle they dedicated for the repair of the temple of the Lord. And everything dedicated by Samuel the seer, and by Saul, son of Kish, Abner, son of Ner, and Joab, son of Zeruiah, and all the other dedicated things were in the care of Shilemith and his relatives. From the Israelites, Cananiah and his sons were assigned duties away from the temple as officials and judges over Israel. From the Hebronites, Hashabiah and his relatives, 1,700 able men, were responsible in Israel west of the Jordan for all the work of the Lord and for the king's service. As for the Hebronites, Jeriah was their chief, according to the genealogical records of their families. In the 40th year of David's reign, a search was made in the records, and capable men among the Hebronites were found at Jazer in Gilead. Jeriah had 2,700 relatives who were able men and heads of families, and David put them in charge of the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh for every matter pertaining to God and for the affairs of the king. So we see a lot of organization taking place, a lot of important things happening. The gatekeepers, just don't overlook how powerful they were. I mean, their responsibility was to keep track of who was coming in and out. And not only that, you know, if you went in unlawfully, it was a death sentence to them, to whoever that was. And so they had huge responsibilities. And then we see, you know, casting lots and stuff. They were seeking God every time, in every decision. Every person is important when whatever post that they had. Now, we don't cast lots today because we have the Holy Spirit that's living in us. So be sure, just like David and his commanders, that we seek the Lord in all of our decisions. Have a great day.